Order, please. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Law Amendments Committee to order. My name is Keith Irving. I am the Vice Chair of this committee, representing the constituency of King South, and Minister Fury, who is the chair, was expected to be here to chair, but he's been delayed a bit, so I will do my best to fill in for him to get us going here this afternoon. I'd like to begin first by asking members of the committee to introduce themselves, and perhaps we can begin with Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tammy Martin, MLA Cape Breton Centre.
Good afternoon. I'm Claudia Chender, MLA for Dartmouth South.
Good afternoon. Tory Rushton, MLA Cumberland South.
Good afternoon. John Lohr, MLA for Kings North.
Good afternoon. Suzanne Lonis-Croft, MLA Lunenburg.
Welcome. I'm Margaret Miller. I'm the MLA for Hants East.
I'm Ben Jessam from Hammonds Plains, Lucasville.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brendan McGuire, Halifax Atlantic.
Thank you, everyone, and we're joined by two members of Wedge Council to assist me in the movement of the meeting here this afternoon. Now, we're gathered here to deal with 6 bills: Bill 152, the Plastic Bags Reduction Act; Bill number 166, the Denturists Act; 163, the Wilderness Protection Area; Bill 160, Fisheries and Coastal Resources Act; Bill 169, the Expropriation Act; and Bill number 170, the Public Highways Act. And I just want to run through a few of the housekeeping items and rules of this chamber and this committee. I'd like to remind everyone to turn off your cell phones or put on vibrate. If you need to have an active electronic leash, let's keep it to vibrate. And there's no photos permitted except by accredited media. And I want to remind everyone to wait to be acknowledged by the chair before speaking. This helps us, particularly Hansard, keep track of who's saying what, and so it will all flow through the chair. There are washrooms across the way and also downstairs, and in case of fire or emergency, we would exit to Granville Street and gather at Parade Square. We have delegations on 3 bills and no representation on 3 other bills. The way this works is that each delegation will come to the mics here and state their name and any organization they're affiliated with, and have up to 10 minutes to make a presentation. I'll cut you off probably around 10 minutes or ask if you would like to extend. Total time 15 minutes, so it's usually 10 for presentation and 5 for questions from the committee. Again, I'll seek your acknowledgement whether you want to go less or more than the 10 minutes, just with regard to 15 minutes per delegation. And I think that's it that I wanted to share with everyone, so perhaps we can get started with Bill number 152, the Plastic Bags Reduction Act. And first up is Mark Butler.
I have 15 copies of my presentation. Would that be helpful? I've saved one for myself. So.
So the documents have been circulated. Mr. Butler, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. My name is Mark Butler. I'm the Policy Director at the Ecology Action Centre. We supported the Plastic Bags Reduction Act when it was announced. We continue to do so, but it is essential that it is designed to prevent any unintended consequences, environmental and social, and that there is a timeline for next steps. When we talk about the issue of plastic and plastic pollution, it is important to remind ourselves why we are doing this and to remember the waste hierarchy. And at the top of the waste hierarchy is refuse, then comes reduce, then comes reuse, recycle, waste to energy or burning, and at the very bottom, landfilling. Refuse and reduce are at the top. This bill is a reduction bill, so that is good. There are a number of benefits to reducing the use of plastic. It reduces plastic pollution, i.e. the amount of plastic that we find in our environment, and we've been learning more and more about what that means and the impacts of plastic as it breaks down in the environment and enters the food chain. It reduces greenhouse gases and reduces pollution associated with the production of fossil fuels, plastic production, and even plastic recycling. Our organization's basic approach to plastic is to reduce the amount of plastic we use and recycle the plastic we do use. We support the banning of single-use plastics, starting with bags. While bags are a relatively small proportion of the waste stream, they make up a disproportionate amount of litter and have a disproportionate impact on wildlife. I think of sea turtles, which enter our waters every summer. And there's a couple of species that enter our waters to feed on jellyfish every summer in Nova Scotia. And it's very unfortunate that plastic bags look an awful lot like jellyfish, because these turtles ingest plastic bags, and they actually have in their esophagus, in their throat, downward pointing spines. And once they take in the plastic bag, they can't get it back up again. So the bag goes into their stomach, and I think you might have seen these horrendous pictures of marine life with blocked digestive systems that slowly starve to death as a result of ingesting plastic. So there's really good reasons for doing this. That said, it is critically important that a ban doesn't have unintended consequences. We do not want it to result in the increase in the use of paper bags. Some is to be expected, but if paper simply replaces plastic, we are only slightly ahead. Banning single-use checkout bags will reduce plastic going into the environment, which is important. However, the environmental footprint of paper is considerable. The best choice is no bag, if you only have one or two items, or a reusable bag. And again, as the plastic industry has likely already told you, reusable bags need to be reused. In most cases, at least 50 times for the environmental benefits to start to count. And I brought a few reusable bags. You've seen them, but let's just remind ourselves, here they are. This knapsack here is essentially a reusable bag that I've had almost as long as I've been at Ecology Action Centre, which is 23 years. So you can get a lot of mileage out of a good bag. So we recommend that the government put a fee on paper bags and that there is a price on reusable bags. We also do not want everybody who has been using checkout plastic bags for other purposes to go out and buy bags. Yes, some of that will happen, but it is entirely possible to manage garbage in your own home without using Sobeys bags or other similar small bags. A UN study which looked at single-use plastic bans in over 60 countries stated the following: public awareness is a common denominator for the success of any of the above-mentioned initiatives, aiming at having a broader social impact. Similarly, awareness raising, monitoring, and continued communication of progress to the public will help to build confidence and strengthen commitment to the cause. So we recommend that the government should invest in public awareness and education. That's a crucial part of making these initiatives successful. Not surprisingly, we want to see more ambition around reducing single-use plastics. If we stop here, this bill will be more about show than impact. Other single-use plastics should be considered include styrofoam, straws, cutlery, I always have trouble with that word, coffee cups. And by the way, how is it, I only had to walk 20 feet from our building to find one of these. Now, you can understand when it's a kid and it's a candy wrapper and they're still learning, but I presume, there aren't too many kids drinking coffee, and these are all over our province, everywhere.
Order, please. Mr. Butler, I just wanted to let you know that under the rules of the House, we're not supposed to use props, so hopefully that's your last one. And I'm sure you can articulate things well without the need for props, so I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you. Mr. Butler.
Okay, and I just have a couple, minute and a half left, really. And we also support reducing exemptions. There's a number of exemptions in the Act. We support reducing those exemptions over time as we improve our public education. Again, as I have said with plastic bag ban, it is really important that next steps are well designed so that we minimize the unintended consequences, including social consequences. For example, we do not want a bag ban to disproportionately impact low-income Nova Scotians. A straw ban should make sure that those with disabilities who require a straw to drink can have access to one. The Department of Environment has considerable internal expertise, and there are external experts like Dr. Tony Walker with Dalhousie, Doug Hickman with PHA Consulting, Plastic Free Lunenburg, Clean Foundation, Coastal Action, Plastic Free St. Margaret's, and many others who can advise on a good bill and how to do these measures thoughtfully and carefully. We recommend that the government commit to a review of the plastic bag ban in 1 year and to adding other single-use plastics in a thoughtful way within a year. Finally, I mentioned the waste hierarchy at the top. Along with reducing plastic, the government needs to catch up on the recycling side. We need extended producer responsibility for packaging and paper products. I also encourage the province to support the federal government on national bans and national standards for plastics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. We'll proceed to questions with about 7-8 minutes. Mr. McGuire.
Only one? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for coming here today. Just a quick couple of questions. One, what is the solution? So we see, I mean, if you stop and you look at single-use items that people are using in their day-to-day life, whether it's opening up today I thought as I opened up my child's granola bar, I'm throwing this out. Mm-hmm. And then, you're unwrapping meat or there's all kinds of, so what's the solution for not just personal responsibility, but also for companies out there that, they have a huge investment in this?
Yeah, well, it is. Yeah, thank you. It is a mixture of the personal and government in terms of addressing this, and each drives the other. So this is a good first step, and we need to keep taking these steps to reduce our use of single-use plastics. I agree with you that it is hard to avoid the use of plastic, particularly as we see more and more products using plastic. So taking steps like reducing your use of plastic and then improving the recycling of plastics, I really think that just like the province has an important role to play in terms of addressing the plastic bag issue, and I'm glad the province has stepped in. The federal government also needs to step in and set some national standards, both for the reduction of plastic and for the recycling of plastic. Because if we want to see recycling industry develop in Canada, we need some national standards. We really only should be using plastics. We should reduce our use of plastics, and the plastics we do use, we need to be able to recycle them. So, yes, individual responsibility, but I have a daughter. She really wanted that particular granola bar, and so so.
I only have one other question here, so I guess we can allow a supplementary unless some hands start waving. Quick supplementary?
Yeah, sorry, just trying to wrap my head around some of the stuff, but also what is obviously the time it takes for these plastics to break down, if they break down at all, is exponentially longer than paper. But what is the impact of also moving toward, because you're saying here, what I read here was there should also be a fee for paper bags. But would that include, when you used to go to the butcher, your meat was wrapped in paper and things like that? Like, what kind of impact does that have on the environment? So you're obviously harvesting trees, pulp mills, and then disposing of that also. Because most time you get paper, it's not just paper, it has some kind of, coating on it and things like that. So I'm just trying to...
Mr. Butler.
So I guess what I'm trying to ask, sorry, is what's the ideal solution for reducing our footprint?
That's the last quick supplementary. Mr. Butler.
Yeah, well, and just to, there are folks, Dr. Tony Walker, Plastic Free Lunenburg, is doing a lot of work in the community who can really talk about alternatives and how to do this. So you're going to hear from them, and the department should reach out to other experts. We're not the first jurisdiction to do this. 60 other countries have done this, so we can learn from them. So let's learn from them. What's driving the concern about plastic? One is China saying no or really upping its standards, and two, it's all the science around what happens to plastic. I don't know if you've ever done a beach cleanup, but go back into the woods and pick up a piece of plastic. You can't, because it breaks down into little pieces, and that's what's happening, and that's what we're realizing, and that plastic is potentially toxic. It's ending up in our food. It's ending up in the marine ecosystem. So that's a real issue. So and paper, yeah, I mean, that's why I brought these along. That's why I brought them into this room 2 weeks ago. Reusable, like the reusable bags that you can reuse and reuse and reuse is essential. And just collecting hundreds of reusable bags at home is, you're no further ahead. Like, you have to use them, and we all have them. So, like, giving out more reusable bags is not the answer.
Thank you. Mr. Lohr, with about 2.5 minutes.
You may have just answered part of my question, but my question was, why were you recommending specifically a fee on paper bags and a price on reusable bags? And you started to answer it, I think, just before I asked it, but maybe if you could.
Yeah. Mr. Butler.
Fair enough, and it's sort of unintended, good intention, ban plastic bags. If we all go out and just replace the plastic bags we've been getting with paper bags, well, at least if that bag gets into the environment, it's going to degrade fairly quickly. And unfortunately, we've been telling people not to litter for 50 years, and they're still littering. So, hence why we're at this stage of banning things. But if we just switch to paper bags, there's an environmental cost in producing those. We have to cut down trees, or we have to recycle paper. And if you do the life cycle assessment, we're not much further ahead when it comes to paper bags and reusable bags. If I just use this 20 times, I might as well use a checkout plastic bag because of the energy and plastic that goes into producing those bags.
A quick one from Ms. Chender.
Thank you for your presentation. One of the things, and this is kind of on a more micro level, but I think you raised it in your presentation. One of the things I hear about the most is people saying, well, these single-use plastic bags are not single-use because I use them for dog waste or I use them for household waste, that kind of thing. So you mentioned in your presentation, there are other ways to manage your household waste. Like, can you maybe let me know what a few of those are? Because this is a question I get from my constituents all the time. And so we do want to, this is to the public awareness point. We do want to have an educative function in terms of helping people to choose wisely with their alternatives.
Mr. Butler with 45 seconds.
Okay, well, I'll try to answer this. And again, there are people with even more knowledge on the specifics that we should turn to. And I never thought I'd be talking about my garbage can in the legislature. But what we do at home is we have one big garbage can with a pedal lid, and we open it up, and that's what we put our garbage into. So we don't need. You can also use, think of all the things that do come in plastic, like toilet paper or even a bag of chips. You can use those as a replacement for the Sobeys or Superstore bag. So there are options, and then we get into the whole issue of compostable bags and the pros and cons of that, and pet waste.
Great.
Perfect.
Perfect timing, Mr. Butler. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Next up, Joe Ruska, Vice President, Sustainability, Canadian Plastics Industry. I'm losing my job.
Welcome. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and committee members, and Mr. Irving, thank you for the great introduction. You got the name right. Thank you for having me here today, and it's a real pleasure. And I'm Vice President of Sustainability, as my handout says, represent Canadian Plastic Industry Association. One of the reasons why they hired me, I've handled all the materials, launched the Blue Box. Our group got the United Nations Award. My kids were happy about that. Not too many people get the United Nations Award for these things, and it was a team. So we represent over 2,600 companies across Canada. It's a big industry. Anyways, here today to talk about the Plastic Bags Reduction Act, and I'm not going to go through the detail amendments we made because it would take way more than 10 minutes. Our amendments are extensive. What we wanted to do was change this to Checkout Bags Environmental Impact Reduction Act. There's a laser focus on just plastic bags, and we're talking about impacts of all bags, and I think Mr. Butler talked about them. Our amendments are for you to see at the back. They're in red, and they address all bags. There is a critical omission in Bill 152, the lack of robust attention to all single-use packaging and products, and we would prefer this dealt with in a comprehensive bill. 152 falls short in dealing with this classification of products called single-use and packaging, including all bags. For bags, this is also a major omission in the fact that the bill only looks at plastic bags. It should be looking at all bag types. Every bag on the market has environmental impacts. The amended main purpose of the Act, which I meant to you or just spoke to, is to manage the impacts of all bags, is as follows in some key actions. And the purpose of the Act is to reduce carbon, greenhouse gas emissions, waste and litter by all types of checkout bags to support greenhouse gas reduction targets and goals for Nova Scotia. Using an aggressive bag fee regime to reduce greenhouse gas and carbon emissions based upon the carbon footprint of the particular bag. And let me add, we can use this to reduce waste and litter, take a portion of the fees from the retailers to support market development on film plastic. Most of the film plastic out there is not bags, it is overwrap. And I can tell you right now, I just had a call from the group that takes all this back from your province, and they will be shutting down the network for the overwrap that you have right now that does have a market to make new bags. And it's unfortunate because this will be a consequence. Bags make up very little part, a very small part of your waste stream. You could use those fees to deal with infrastructure, and I've talked with previous ministers of environment about this. So we have to be careful of this. So what I would say is an aggressive bag fee regime will accomplish reduction not only in tonnage and amounts of all bags, it will promote responsible use, but also deal with greenhouse gases, which I think your province just declared a climate change emergency. Can we agree on the following? We all agree plastic waste and other litter must be prevented, but as Mr. Butler showed you in his prop, it's a social behavioral problem and a waste management problem, not a material or packaging issue, as this bill would suggest. We appreciate and understand the tough position all of you are here in as legislatures, and I've been involved in public policy for 30 years. Couldn't have launched the Blue Box and market development without legislators who really understood the issues and the science. Social media and public pressures, I think based on misinformation, emotion, lack of science and education are driving the narrative. We can state categorically those drivers will not solve your environmental problems. We applaud the province for taking up this process to avoid a patchwork of regulations. It should not be left with municipalities. I like provincial leadership. It works. And the patchwork would be costly, not environmentally effective, and inefficient for industry and consumers to manage. So we have immense plastic benefits, preserves food, extends food, protects resources. We also want to meet our association's 100% goal of recycling, reusing, and recovering plastics. It requires leadership and key stakeholders to get the facts and develop good environmental policy. Right now, the public does not have the facts, and single-use plastics on bags and single-use plastics that would contribute to effective environmental policy. So I want to share some facts with you and take you through the science and the facts, because you're headed for higher levels of greenhouse gas, not less. We think there's more positive solutions to address this issue. The banning of plastic bags is not beneficial for the environment. That's what the Quebec government and its Canadian life cycle assessment of all bags found. Similar results found by other countries, the UK, Denmark, University Clemson bag cycle studies. So the following bag types need an equivalent number of reuses to equal one thin plastic bag environmentally. The cotton bag, 100 to over 2,000 uses. Polypropylene woven bags, 16 to 98. Non-woven polypropylene bags, 11 to 59. Thick plastic bag, which we think has potential to be the reusable bag that can be recycled because all the other bags are not, 4 to 6 times. And the paper bag actually performs not bad, but it's 4 to 28 times. So these decisions you're going to have will have consequences on greenhouse gas and climate change emergency you've declared. 152 has the unintended threat of creating negative unintended environmental impacts and increasing GHGs. So, conventional plastic bag, several environmental economic advantages. It's thin, it's light, production requires little material and energy, and that goes for a lot of plastics. The reason why they've become the preferred packaging and moved on from some of the 19th century technology is they are so environmentally efficient when it comes to energy and material. Reusable bags currently on the market are not recyclable, and I'm hearing from landfill operators they're ending up there. We don't want that. They have to be used a lot of times. The plastic bag industry is saying we can make 100% recyclable, 100% locally made reusable bag with 40% recycled content. We ask that the province work with us. What I don't understand, and MLA Miller's here because I've seen comments in the newspaper, previous Minister of Environment, Ian Rankin, they have resisted bans, and this position is well documented in the media. What has changed other than the politics? There was no consultation. We had not been able to meet. I think it's important that we get together and talk about actions that will actually result in true environmental progress. So we think it's very important that the stakeholders get together. To follow Prince Edward Island, well, they pushed it through in record time. It's a bag policy not well researched, and I don't think you should even look at it or follow it. The minister, who is no longer minister there, Mr. Brown, had all the science and the facts, but they went ahead with it. We do not, and the life cycle assessments don't support the banning of plastic bags. 152 doesn't address carbon and greenhouse gas emissions. It overlooks environmental impacts of other bags. And based on the government's quick reversal on bag bans, the rush to pass legislation, 152 is a virtual signaling at best. It will result in poor policy formulation and a band-aid solution based on uninformed public pressures instead of science and facts. Other impacts not studied. Pardon me, sir? 2 minutes, thank you. Is the hastiness of the bill, and it will have a chilling effect on new technologies and circular economy, and even EPR, which you should try to implement. And as I mentioned, we will be losing the recycling of film plastics in the whole Atlantic region. True Cost also is a group of the U.S. advises UN, and they found the environmental cost of using plastics in consumer goods and packaging is nearly 4 times less than it would be if plastics were replaced with alternative materials. Also gave you the Franklin result. Also, it's not a litter problem in North America. Studies have shown that it's only 0.4% of litter. And we know litter is a behavioral problem, so it'll just get replaced with something else. I've given you the source, and that's 44 communities. The Jambeck study of marine pollution, Canada's 0.01% of plastic in the oceans, and 90% of it comes from Asia and Africa through 10 rivers. So banning things here in Canada and North America will not work. Laser focus on checkout bags, well, it's blinded you to the other materials that are single use. So I would move to the actions and changes. We would like you to pause on the legislation and develop sound policy and solutions. Start or institute a plastic industry working group comprised of key stakeholders and a select committee of MLAs like yourselves to access that information. 152 critically misses management of single-use packaging, so we would, again, ask you to pause and rethink. We want a comprehensive plan on single-use, and it would not just be focused on plastics, all single-use. Other jurisdictions, Denmark, Quebec, et cetera, have invested years of time, not just a few weeks that I can see from this, and we can use that experience. And also, in agreement with Mr. Butler, and I understand you're just implementing the oil EPR. You have experience. We need EPR here. It will handle all the materials. And I have to say, in a conference with Mr. Butler and Ecology House, experts all agreed a bag ban was not beneficial, but EPR is where we should go. Unfortunately, those results were not reported. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you very much. And before we go to questions, I want to remind all members to frame your question in the shortest period possible. Thank you. Mr. Maguire.
Was that meant toward me? So a couple of things there. You said that, and I've heard this on many different issues around global warming, climate change, is that Canada is such a small market, we really can't make an impact because of China and the United States and places like that. Well, Canadians use 15 billion plastic bags per year, single-use plastic bags. That's what they use. So as an industry, you're producing those plastic bags, 15 billion for a population of about 37 million people. What happens to those plastic bags? So why are we using 15 billion, and where do they go?
Okay, so a good portion of them are reused for managing household waste and reuse activities. Those bags either end up...
Excuse me if I may, we'll get you on the record. Mr. Herska.
Oh, I spoke before the microphone was on, sorry. Okay, so, and again, the number, I don't think that's the issue here. The bags are most highly reused, one of the most highly reused items going. And in fact, the reuse recycling rate for bags is probably in the 85–90% range. The bags either get collected at retail outlets, like in Nova Scotia, and get back and made into new bags at Interplast in their plant in New Brunswick, or recycling plants in Ontario and BC. A large portion end up being reused as, I'll call it waste bags for the household. And in Quebec, they quantified the number as 77%. Those bags do end up in landfill. The environmental benefit is they avoid buying what the British called pedal bags or kitchen catchers, which can have 50% more plastic. In fact, Victoria, which had a bag ban, the retailers and some of the retailers I talked to said it's unsuccessful. They're actually selling more plastic, not less. And Minister Ian Rankin even said to me at the end of an hour-and-a-half meeting, he says, why are you against bans? You sell more plastic. I said, it's the wrong thing to do. We don't want to waste that resource. So the other portion end up in landfill. People do not recycle them, or they don't have what I would call facilities to actually recycle those bags. And putting the infrastructure in to get 100% of them is what's critical.
Mr. Rankin, follow-up. I'm sorry, Mr. Mc...
Thank you. So, but we can admit that 15 billion plastic bags being produced year in and year out has, I mean, with your speech, it was almost like we were minimizing the impact that this is having on our environment. But you can admit that 15 billion plastic bags being produced every year, and you say reusing them, but reusing them could mean using them once and throwing them out. And I suspect that's what most people, let's be honest, like most people that most of us know around this table or in this room are reusing their plastic bag maybe once and then they're throwing it out. You know, I don't know many people that take it back to the grocery store. I don't think people even know that's an option, to be honest with you, but that's something that we could get out there. But removing 15 billion plastic bags from landfills right across, and waterways and things like that right across this country, I mean, will have a positive impact on the environment. Am I correct?
I'm not going to agree with
Mr. Herska.
Oh, sorry. I'm just a little bit quick on the jump here. First of all, they're not a litter problem in North America. The scientific studies have proven that out. And the ones that go to landfill actually avoid a heavier greenhouse gas impact by stopping the production of more plastic through heavier kitchen catchers. If you read the life cycle assessments of the UK, Denmark, Quebec, Clemson, and others, one of the key benefits is the avoidance in the use of plastic. So if you remove that, you end up with paper, heavier plastic. Even the reusable bags have a large carbon footprint, and you have to use them a lot. And there are studies by Edelman Berland who say people do not use them enough to achieve their environmental benefit. So the solution is, let's put fees on, do not ban any one material or bag, and allow people the choices that educate them on the environmental impact. And part of the fee that I've proposed here is based on the carbon footprint. Squamish, BC has gone against the trend in BC to ban bags. They actually said, we're not banning, we're giving people choices of bags. We're going to charge 10 cents, rising to 20, I think, on plastic bags. Paper bags, 30, about 3 times more than plastic. And the reusable bags are going to be an even larger amount. So there are ways to manage environmental impact. You know, let me wind this up in saying all this material is valuable, and where we collect it, it gets recycled.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Wilfred Moore and Teresa Quilty. Welcome. Just a reminder, the presenters have 10 minutes to present their comments and the last 5 minutes for questions. The floor is yours.
Something here. There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Teresa will give a presentation of our thoughts from the Lunenburg Plastic-Free Volunteer Group. And when she's finished, I have some questions which I'd like to put to the committee with regard to the impact of this proposed bill vis-a-vis others that might be coming from municipalities and other levels of government. Teresa.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today. I believe that our submission was distributed previously, so I think you all have that. Thank you. So my name is Teresa Quilty. I'm with Plastic Free Lunenburg. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. Plastic Free Lunenburg is a citizen-based local community group. We've been working for the past 18 months, focused on reducing single-use plastics in our local community. Over the past 18 months, we have been engaged in research, public and business education, and advocacy. And we conducted a community consultation to gauge interest in reducing single-use plastics in Lunenburg, and we had over 300 people participate in our little town. So we believe that while our example is small, we are a good little microcosm of what can be done through education and awareness and supporting people to make changes. So first of all, we'd like to thank you for putting this bill forward. We we welcome it, and we think it's a step in the right direction. But we also think that we want to ensure that it's set up for success, and we believe in its current form that there are some issues that could result in it actually having some unintended impacts and even becoming a liability. We know that there are a number of examples now of many examples of legislation on single-use plastics of various sorts, even more of them on plastic bags, and so we have a lot of examples that we can draw upon, and so we encourage all of those to be used, including, for example, a number of the things that that Mark mentioned, best practices by Dr. Tony Walker and so on plastic bag legislation. So among our main concerns, we believe that the current design lacks disincentives for the other alternatives. So as Mark mentioned, we agree that it's very important to mandate a fee structure for the alternatives, and we would like to see that paralleled with Prince Edward Island. So a minimum charge for large grocery bags starting at 15 cents and going up to 25 cents after 6 months, and a minimum charge for reusable bags of $1 going up to $2 after 6 months. That is something that is being used in PEI, and we agree that it's really necessary for all the reasons that have already been laid out, so that people just don't substitute one problem for another. We also think that it's really essential, and the research bears this out too, to have robust public education associated with this legislation. Has been already discussed in the previous speakers. There are many people already use bags for existing household waste people already reuse these bags for secondary uses. And it's important to encourage public education around how to use existing household waste packaging, newspapers, cardboard, etc., for instead of going out and buying plastic bags. Yes, we think that this is really essential, and that people don't just perceive the need to go out and get more free bags somewhere else. There are a number of initiatives that are happening around the province. For example, I'd like to point out Coastal Action's Ocean Friendly Nova Scotia program, which includes a comprehensive guide for businesses to eliminate single-use plastics and receive recognition for doing so. This program was piloted in Lunenburg over the past year, and it is intended to be rolled out across Nova Scotia in 2020. And that guide is based on research, and what we have found in the pilot phase is that it's been very helpful for businesses in our community to reduce plastics. And we already have 2 restaurants in town that are 100% single-use plastic free. So we're very proud of that, and we also want to show that this can be done, and it's been very well received by the communities. As a community that is on the coast, and we are very, very aware that our local economy depends on tourism, on the fisheries, and on the, like many other coastal communities, it's important that we take care of what's most important to us. So it seems incongruous for visitors to be coming to Nova Scotia and wanting to eat our fresh seafood and look out at the ocean, and maybe doing that using plastic forks, having styrofoam containers to take their take-home food in and so on. And it only draws closer to home to people who are eating our fresh seafood, the connection that there are microplastics known to be in our seafood now. And so it's very, very important that we get in front of this and that we manage it, and that we not point out and highlight the problems that are existing in our seafood. We also believe that this bill needs to be put into context and not be seen as a one-off solution, just targeting one type of bag. So there are many other products that we've already started to allude to here that also need to be taken into account. And we think that putting the bill into context and setting a leadership commitment to phase out the elimination of a number of single-use plastics will be better received by both those who are supporters and those who are resistors, because they'll understand that this is not just a random one-off type of bill, but in fact it's part of a larger plan and a commitment, and they'll understand why that's happening. So among those other commitments, we'd like to see immediately removing from the current exceptions list those items for which there are already alternatives available. That's in line with the federal Liberal plan, and priority given to those items that are in contact with food. So 2 of the items on your exemption list would be the packaging of loose bulk items, and also the to protect prepared foods or bakery goods that are not prepackaged. We believe that those are easy to also include and get rid of. We'd also like to see the addition of polystyrene for food use, plastic straws and cutlery added to this list. It makes a lot of sense, and those are also low-hanging fruit, easy to get rid of, and again, associated with food in a way that we don't want to emphasize. And over the next 2 years, we'd like to see phasing in of the most egregious single-use plastics. That would include single-serving condiment packets, disposable food and beverage cups, containers, and lids, and single-serving beverage containers under 750 mils. There are excellent programs and partnerships to work with that are already out there doing public education and helping with infrastructure changes, such as Blue W program. bluew.org. So there's a lot happening on the ground level. There's a high level, unprecedented level of public awareness, and we think that the Nova Scotia government can set the bar higher. We believe that Nova Scotians want the bar higher. That is borne out by the research that was done back in June at Dalhousie University, and so we encourage you to look to those. So that's just a highlight of some of our concerns and suggestions. I'll hand it over to my colleague Wilfred.
Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've been working at this in Lunenburg for, I guess, about a year and a half. And I know that HRM is talking about trying to bring in some kind of a bill, they said, by the end of December. We have put a couple of potential proposed bylaws to our town council. So what I'd like to know, we'd like to know, if this bill passes, is it paramount? Does it supersede any bylaw that any municipality might bring in? Can you answer that one first?
Typically, provincial statutes override municipal bylaws, but there is legislation in place that would enable municipalities to apply bylaws beyond provincial legislation, and I use the Cannabis Act, the recent legalization, as one example. And I'm not sure, to your question, if that element is part of this bill, but something that we can certainly look at. Mr. Moore.
One item which Teresa mentioned, for example, is plastic straws. So if Lunenburg brought in a bill, passed a bylaw and I'm not sure how this works vis-a-vis 152, could the town add, plastic straws, to ban plastic straws, or would they have to come back to the province to have this bill amended to include plastic straws?
Very good question. Without reading the draft bill, looking for that specific element, if the clause is not there that would allow municipalities to apply additional bylaws beyond provincial legislation, it's something that we could certainly look at and something that we could take back from this discussion to the department. Mr. Moore.
Thank you for that, Chair. I just think, we're talking hypotheticals, but very real ones, because we've been advocating this, and I think there's probably good support for it in the community. If the federal government brings in a ban plastic, certain products, whether it's bags or whatever, where do we fit then? Where do we fit as a province? And where, I know municipalities are creatures of the province, but where do the municipalities fit then? Have you looked at that? And I ask this question, Mr. Chair, because I think it's important that there be a sunset clause here where we can come back, regardless of what happens with this 152, that we can go back and have another look in a couple of years. This is moving. I think the public's aware of this. It's all caught up in the part of the climate change concerns and so on. The young people certainly get it. We had a group up here before town council in Lunenburg, grade 6. I mean, they get it. So I think there's a need to provide some kind of a sunset review period 2 years hence, so there can be further consideration given to what may be added or deleted, whatever. What's been working, how can we make it work better?
Certainly, I appreciate your question. Specific to any subsequent federal legislation, obviously the provinces would be bound by federal legislation. There may be a need and certainly an opportunity through processes to amend provincial legislation to ensure it complies with or aligns with federal legislation. For that municipal level, which is really your focus, and kudos to the town of Lunenburg for taking the initiative you have, I think it's important that we look at the bill to determine if municipalities chose to impose a higher standard, are they able to do that? I think that's a valid takeaway for the committee. We are running out of time, but we do have questions, so I want to defer to the questions, and then we could come back for final comments. Ms. Lonis-Croft.
Thank you for being here, and I'm quite well aware of your program and have attended your inaugural meeting, I think. So my concern is supporters versus resistors, because we know the resistors are out there. Just drive down the By High and you see lots of plastics out there. And so have you done any focus on how you bring in the resistors into your program? Besides the penalties, like with the cost of the bags, I guess.
Ms. Quilty?
To that, thank you. Yeah, so I think if we can look at where else have changes happen, that are different types of changes where people have had to make behavioral changes, maybe that they didn't want to. And I think we're all familiar enough, certainly in your roles, to know that not everybody changes at the same pace, and education is very important for bringing people along. So is social pressure. People do what they see their friends doing. They do what they think is the cool thing to do or the thing to do, what's popular. So those are all factors in human behavior, but people change at different rates. In any kind of change, there are people who are early adopters. We're probably in that group, people who want to do those things early on. There's an early majority that follows, a late majority that follows later on, and then there's resistors. And so there always will be that in any kind of change. And if we look to seatbelt laws or things like that, we can say there comes a time when government recognizes and the public recognizes that there's something that's important enough for the public good that we all need to do it, and that's why we bring legislation in. So I think that's why we're looking at legislation now, because we recognize that that many people are aware, many people are making changes, but we're creatures of habit. And so public education can help us move along, but there's nothing like being at the grocery store with your purchases and going, oops, I don't have a bag. To start remembering to bring your bag. So I think most people we've talked to in town, and that we've seen a huge amount of change because we've had such a big push in a small area. We've been able to move through public education and as well as some of that social norm change. And yeah, I think we've absolutely seen a huge change. Two grocery stores have told us they've seen that as well, a reduction in the amount of bags going through. Almost every other shop doesn't hand out plastic bags anymore. So the voluntary changes have mostly happened, but there's probably 20% of the shops and people in town that are still not changing their ways, and probably won't until they don't have the option anymore.
Thank you, Ms. Quilty. Mr. Irvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to follow up on the question from our delegation here. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I did have experience at the municipal level. I think, solid waste is governed by municipalities. So I think there is some strength at the municipal level. If you were banning straws, or, in the valley, they brought in recycling for styrofoam and a whole system there. Other municipalities in the province didn't. Certainly, the Provincial Act is trying to create consistency across the province, and I think that's where industry and businesses would like it. Retail sector supports this bill because of its consistency across the province, but it doesn't forego other municipalities from taking the lead, setting the example, and then having that become provincial-wide through conversations and experiences and lessons learned at individual municipalities. The last point I'll make is the important decision at the municipal level with respect to their powers to exceed what a provincial or federal jurisdiction has done is the Hudson's decision from quite a number of years ago, probably a decade or so, in which Hudson, Quebec went to court to allow them to ban pesticides in their municipality. And they won that decision, and that has changed the balance a bit. So again, I want to support and encourage Lunenburg, to continue to take the lead. Provincially, we're incrementally going to go down this route, and we can certainly learn from you and your experiences. Public education, as you mentioned, is important, and there's a lot of work that needs to go in, not only banning through legislation, but creating social change, social behavioral change in our citizens. So I just wanted to add those comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Irvin. Any other questions? Just two takeaways based on your comments. An inquiry around enabling legislation, further legislation by or for municipalities, and your comments specific to a sunset clause, I know followed the initial presentation, so we'll be sure to take those back to the committee. Any concluding comments? Ms. Quilty.
Thank you. Yeah, so the sunset clause, I guess that's akin to a point that I meant to make, which is really ensuring that I think we'd like to see a mandatory annual review. Things are changing so quickly on this front and we're learning a lot from other places, that it would be really important to build that into it. So I'm not sure if that's exactly what you're saying, but we would support that.
Thank you very, very much. To all presenters, thank you. That concludes the discussions on Bill 152, the Plastic Bags Reduction Act. We will call Bill 166, the Denturists Act. Mr. John Lilly, first presenter. And just a reminder for those in the audience to ensure your cell phones are turned off. I'm led to believe it's all one presentation. Ms. Maureen Hope and Ryan Baxter. Welcome. The floor is yours. For purposes of having your comments on the record, whoever is speaking first, allow me to introduce you, and that keys the mic to ensure your comments are on the record. The microphone is yours, Ms. Hope.
My name is Maureen Hope, and I'm the Registrar for the Denturists Licensing Board. Accompanying me today is John Lilly, who is Vice President of the Denturists Society. And also accompanying me today is Ryan Baxter of McGuinness Cooper, who is a colleague of Marjorie Hickey at the firm. Marjorie assisted us in navigating the introduction of these amendments. Unfortunately, she had to be out of town today. As I've noted, my role is Registrar of the Denturists Licensing Board, which is the regulatory body for denturists in this province. John Lilly has an executive role with the Denturists Society, which is the membership body for denturists. While our two organizations have separate mandates, it is noticeable that both the regulatory body and the membership body are here today speaking as one in support of these amendments. The two organizations have worked very closely together over these many years to make these amendments possible. I will now ask John to say a few words, please.
Mr. Lilly.
Thank you, Chair and members. As Maureen mentioned, my name is John Lilly. I'm the Vice President of the Denturists Society of Nova Scotia. Our President, Della Sangster, is unable to be here today. I'm a denturist practicing in the Annapolis Valley, and I have some interesting facts for you. In Nova Scotia, there are currently approximately 40 denturists who are licensed. 75% of those are over 50, and 25% of those are over 60. Seniors form a large percentage of the population served by denturists. As the number of seniors has increased, so too has the need for denturist services. Despite this, our numbers have been on the decline. One of the reasons for this is that denturists in Nova Scotia are currently limited in their scope of practice. Unlike denturists in every other province in the country, except for PEI, Denturists in Nova Scotia are restricted from engaging in a scope of practice that involves the placing of removable dentures over implants. The ability to conduct this procedure has been in place in some provinces since the early 1990s and has been taught in accredited education programs for many years. Several denturists in Nova Scotia have the education to engage in this practice, but are restricted by the current language in the Denturists Act from engaging in this procedure. Many dentists have approached denturists to inquire why this expanded scope is not in place here. These dentists have seen denturists engage in this practice in other provinces and understand the value of the collaborative provision of oral health care and the role that our respective professions can play to improve overall oral health care delivery to Nova Scotians. The amendments that are proposed in Bill 166 will enable denturists in Nova Scotia to have the same scope of practice as our counterparts across the country. They will enable denturists to place removable dentures over implants. The Denturists Licensing Board will ensure that those who engage in this process have the required education and experience. Together with the Denturists Society and in consultation with the Provincial Dental Board and the Nova Scotia Dental Association, the Denturists Licensing Board has developed required educational standards and standards of practice for denturists who will engage in this scope of practice. Those who have completed the required education will be listed on the board's website, and their licenses will be endorsed to show that they are authorized to engage in this practice. Like all healthcare professionals, they will be required to practice in accordance with their standards of practice and their governing legislation. I will finish by giving you a few concrete examples of why this legislation is needed. I am aware of a young graduate from an accredited denturism program who left the province in the past few years, specifically because he was unable to engage in the practice of placing removable dentures over implants, a procedure he had been taught in his curriculum and which was being performed by denturists across the country. I am also aware of denturists who have retired in the past few years who have been unable to sell their practices as they cannot attract new graduates because of the limitation in their scope of practice. I urge you to approve these amendments to the Denturists Act so that young graduates will see no impediments to establishing their practices here and to assist increasing the number of denturists who are able to serve our population. I will now turn it back to Maureen Hope for a few closing words.
Ms. Hope.
John had mentioned that with respect to our educational and practice standards that we had consulted both the Provincial Dental Board and the Nova Scotia Dental Association for their input. Indeed, the Denturists Licensing Board has been working toward these amendments since 2012 and has been in consultation with both the Dental Board and the Association throughout the period of time. As you might expect, in good consultation process, there has been give and take in the coming to the words that are now before you in Bill 166. The amendments that are now before you have been the result of a lengthy process in which all of our organizations have been fully engaged. Finally, I wanted to note as well that we do have the support of the Denturists Association of Canada in advancing these amendments. This national organization has supported all the provinces that have advanced their similar amendments across the country. In closing then, while these amendments are quite technical and not as easy read, they are important to the denturist in this province, and even more important to the clients who will be the beneficiaries of this expanded scope of practice. We hope the members of this committee will support this bill and ensure that it moves to third reading without amendment. Thank you for the time here today.
Thank you, Ms. Hope. Questions? Is it possible to obtain a copy of your submission? That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for taking your time today to present on this bill. Appreciate it. That concludes comments on Bill 166, the Denturists Act. We're slightly ahead of schedule. Is Mr. Barnett in the audience? Yep. We'll give it a few minutes, Mr. Barnett, and we'll call you up. Mr. Rogers and Mr. Porter, both here, so we can commence. All presenters are here. Mr. Barnett. Just want to remind all presenters, presentation is for a period of 10 minutes, leaving 5 minutes for questions and response. Mr. Barnett, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Barry Barnett, and I'm here today representing the All-Terrain Vehicle Association of Nova Scotia. I've been the Executive Director for ATVANS for nearly 10 years, and before that I served as the MLA for Sackville-Beaverbank, holding various cabinet positions. ATVANS represents the organized, responsible ATV sector in Nova Scotia through 42 member clubs with nearly 5,000 individual members. ATVANS is the third largest ATV federation in Canada. Our clubs and members ride on, manage, develop, and maintain multi-use trails on both public and private lands in all areas of Nova Scotia. Our association, through our clubs, hosts nearly 100 riding events annually, facilitate rider training, build and maintain trails, help promote safe, responsible ATV use through our volunteer trail patrol program, and provide safe, responsible use information to all riders. ATVANS has a multi-year strategic framework that helps guide our future direction. A key feature embedded within our framework is to support the development of an interconnected trail system. To this end, we have worked closely with various government departments to assist us in this endeavor. The provision in this bill will help us move toward achieving our goal. Together with government and our partners, we have made great progress as we fully expect to complete our trail system in the not-too-distant future. We believe in and support government's goal of 13% protected wilderness land in Nova Scotia. However, we also believe this can be achieved without drastically impacting the existing trail use where appropriate. We believe government has listened to our members and others when adding candidate wilderness protected areas in recent years. We thank the staff of the Department of Environment for their ongoing support and understanding. The provisions within this bill will allow for ministerial approval to support connectivity through Ogden Round Lake Wilderness Area that has been a long-standing concern in Guysborough County. The Portapeck River Wilderness Area will provide north-south access between Colchester and Cumberland County on a long-established trail. Although I do not speak on behalf of the Snowmobile Federation, I know this is seen as great news by their members as well. Our members are concerned about the ecology of Nova Scotia and understand and respect the fact that we cannot ride everywhere. It is important to point out that because of mobility issues, many of our members would never be able to enjoy much of the beauty of our great province if it were not for ATV use. The sport of ATVing in Nova Scotia is an important economic driver in our economy. A study published by Nova Insights, Inc. in 2015 indicates that $160 million in direct spending annually comes from our sport alone, much of this in rural Nova Scotia. We encourage the committee and the legislature to support this bill, not just because of the impact on the economy and mobility concerns, but also, and most importantly, to supports the way of life in Nova Scotia while protecting the environment. We believe this bill has the ability to provide the correct balance needed to achieve both. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Barnett. Questions? Are you able to leave a copy of your submission?
We have 15 copies of each, and we also have a copy of our respect document that we provide to all of our members and other members of the public as we approach them on the trails and around Nova Scotia.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Question has come to the floor. Mr. Lohr.
Thank you, Mr. Barnett, Barry, for your presentation. I'm just wondering, you mentioned that you expect the connectivity of the trail to be completed in the near future. How many more areas would you say are similar to the two areas this bill is connecting? How much more is there that needs to be done? I know you can't give me a precise number, but what would your guess be?
Mr. Barnett.
Area specifically or across the province and everywhere? Well, probably a couple of thousand. We've identified a few thousand. Many of them are very easy to achieve. Often they're just the development of existing trail.
Thank you, Mr. Barnett. Follow-up for Mr. Lohr.
Thank you. So I just heard you say there's a couple thousand areas in the province that need more connectivity. So what would the basis of you expect to have this done in the near future? That doesn't sound like a near future goal. I'm just can you explain your thinking?
Mr. Barnett.
We've accomplished in some years hundreds of these things. So, you know, it's in some cases it's just very short, minor disconnects, but the major ones included highways, rivers, wilderness protected areas. In many cases, we have those accomplished in large part due to the support of the government.
Thank you, Mr. Barnett. Any further questions? Appreciate your time today. Mr. Rogers. Welcome, Mr. Rogers.
Thank you very much.
The floor is yours.
Sip of water first, please. Without these, I don't do anything. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to voice our concerns on the amendments to Chapter 27 of the Act 1998. I didn't give a full explanation. My name is Tony Rogers. I'm with the Nova Scotia Federation of Anglers and Hunters. I used to be an employee of theirs, and they brought me back in to do some volunteer work after I retired. And I'm here today to represent them because most of them are in Cape Breton hunting moose today. So. As a point of interest, we note that the proposed amendments requires the minister to provide 60 days notice and an opportunity for consultation regarding the naming of the wilderness area. We applaud this initiative, but wish the principles had been applied to law amendments because this is our opportunity and it's only 6 days after the first reading. And we really had to jump at this to make sure we were heard. And I will apologize now, I don't have copies for everybody because we just got this approved late today. Our concerns and proposed amendments are focused on two issues. One is access and the other is equality. Our first concern in the amendment is the definition of structures and facilities that will now include boats. We've been told that this will allow environment to deal with a boat storage issue under 23(2)B that we have been discussing with them for some time now. Our concern is that it may have overlooked the implications in 17(2)B, which prohibits the construction, maintenance, and operation of a structure or a facility. So that would mean now the boat in a wilderness area. The consequences of prohibiting the operation of a boat, which according to Oxford English Dictionary also defines canoes and kayaks, in the wilderness area would be staggering. In addition to all but eliminating sport fishing, it would seriously impede wilderness travel and significantly reduce the use of the wilderness areas by residents and eco-tourists. Our second concern is of one of equality. These amendments would allow for the operation of vehicles on connector trails in 2 wilderness areas. We applaud this initiative and increase access to wilderness areas. However, we wish to point out the fact that the trail agreements under the wilderness protected areas treat the citizens of Nova Scotia inadequately, manner based on membership in a few selected organizations, because of the use of these trails is restricted to members of those organizations. The fund required to develop and maintain these trails comes from the Off-Highway Vehicle Infrastructure Fund. However, the OHV owner pays $40 into the fund each time they renew their registration, but they cannot use the trails unless they join one of the organizations that use the funds to build and maintain the trails. I'll also add here too that many of the trails that are being used by ATVs today are former woods roads that were used for logging, and the taxpayer had already paid for those in the past. It is our position that all trails in wilderness areas and other Crown land should be open to every legally registered and insured OHV owner and those who contribute to the fund. Submitted by the Federation of Anglers and Hunters. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Questions? Thank you very much. Mr. Porter and Mr. Connolly. For purposes of recording, Mr. Porter is, and Mr. Connolly. The floor is yours, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before this committee, the only one of its kind, as I understand it, in the country. We need to guard our democracy just jealously, and this committee provides a valuable venue for citizens to express their opinion on legislation that comes before the House. My name is Roger Porter, and my colleague here is Philip Connolly. It's been 10 years since we appeared before the Law Amendments Committee, and today we speak on the very same subject as we did then, but this time I think in a much different and a much more satisfactory manner. It has to do with the trail in the Ogden Round Lake Wilderness area, and the trail is specifically noted in the legislation as the Grant Lake, Ross Lake Connecting Trail. We are addressing and supporting Bill 163 in its entirety, and specifically item 5.2, subsection 23.4c, A through to E, the Grant Lake, Ross Lake Trail. We take this opportunity to commend the Premier McNeil, the Minister of Environment, the Honourable Gordon Wilson, his staff, especially Mr. Peter Labor, who in the last 10 years has graciously accepted my monthly call to him to impress upon him the importance of a trail in the Ogden Round Lake area, and I've found him and the staff to be cooperative. We would also like to thank the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal, the Honourable Lloyd Hines, who has, of course, is from the district of Guysborough, and has been important in being able to get the legislation before the House. We also want to say thank you to Mr. Ray Plord of the Ecology Action Centre, who has, and to the staff of the Ecology Action Centre for their cooperation and for their understanding over the last 10 years. And there has been a significant development within the Ecology Action Centre and their attitude towards a trail in the Ogden Round Lake. As some of us will recall, Mr. Ray Plord spoke here 10 years ago against a trail through Ogden Round Lake. But since then, through various meetings and chats and name calling and whatever, I think we have come to a general agreement that the trail is necessary. The long existing connector Grant Lake, Ross Lake Trail in the Ogden Round Lake Wilderness area, when it's brought up to standard, will have a dramatic effect on the wilderness access and the enjoyment, in addition to a very positive effect on the economy of eastern Nova Scotia. And of course, with the designation of the trail, the Trans-Canada Trail, which was supposed to have been finished in 2017, and to be able to say at the time that the Trans-Canada Trail was completed, there had to be 26 kilometers of trail through the town of Guysborough over pavement, and then part of it over water in order to say it was completed. This trail will now make available the corridor through which the Trans-Canada Trail can complete without having to go over the paved roads in Guysborough town. It is our desire to work with Nova Scotia Environment and the other stakeholders, as you've heard here already today, to upgrade the trail that has existed for generations. There will be no shortage of help, I can assure you. As we reach the autumn or perhaps winter of our years, and Philip and I, as we look back on our successes and failures, and although this corridor may not seem like very much to some, we consider the designation of this trail as some of our major accomplishments. Once again, we want to say thank you, and we will be celebrating with music, refreshments, and song for God knows how long in Guysborough District to when this bill is proclaimed into law. So we urge the members of this committee to support the amendments to this bill, and there will be peace in the valley. So respectively submitted, and that is already the end of our presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Questions? Thank you very much. Is it possible to leave a copy of your presentation? Thank you. That concludes debate on Bill 163, the Wilderness Area Protection Act. The remaining three bills, Bill 160, Fisheries and Coastal Resources Act, there's no representation. Bill 169, Expropriation Act, will be deferred to another date. And Bill 170, the Public Highways Act, there's no representation. That concludes law amendments for, oh, I'm sorry. Question, Mr. Irvin.
No, it's not a question, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move that Bill number 152 be referred back to the House without amendment.
Motion on the floor. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Mr. Irvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move that Bill number 166 be reported back to the House without amendment.
Motion on the floor. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Mr. Irvin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move that Bill number 163, the Wilderness Protection Act, be referred back to the House without amendment.
Motion on the floor. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Ms. DiConstanzo.
Thank you. Thank you. I move that Bill number 160, Fisheries and Coastal Resources Act, to be sent back to the House as well, without amendment.
Motion on the floor. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Ms. DiConstanzo.
Bill number 170, the Public Highways Act, also to be sent back to the House without amendment.
Motion on the floor. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. That concludes our law amendments meeting for today. Thank you.